How gold is not in her. She's a diamond.
So hi everyone, this is another section of the videos that we'll be releasing or rolling out across YouTube and Facebook, and this section is going to be on my story. Many have asked for my story and my background, so I'm going to spend maybe a few videos just touching upon areas in my life, so you get to understand who I am and why I am the way I am. All those kind of things that seem to pop up on the inbox for people to want to know for some reason, and it will maybe give you an understanding of why my mind works the way it does, the analysing and the database that I own, this very natural database which I talk a lot about within mediumship and certainly developing that mediumship. And so it will take a few, I would imagine. Again, I welcome the comments. I'm not looking for sympathy or praise or anything like that. I'm not looking for any of that. It's just simply just to roll the story out for an understanding of who and why I am the way I am. So my story, well, I don't really know where to begin. So I can maybe elaborate later on once these first few parts have come out. So I'll do kind of like a 0 to 38 moment and just touch upon it in those areas. So I had a very normal childhood. It wasn't difficult. I wasn't privileged. You know, my parents worked very hard. It was me and my younger sister, Stephanie, and I can feel my mind just going into gear now and recapping on all the things I've done. And so at an early age at school, I wasn't really coming out of my shell really. I was quite a quiet, shy lad very early on, so sort of 5, 6, going into sort of the 9 and 10 period. I was very shy for that bulk there, and I remember that I went through a period of bullying at school. Got bullied quite heavily. I started to become cheeky as well, so probably explain some of that. And so, but I loved football, absolutely loved football, so I always had a ball and I was always out kicking that about with my mates on the green outside, so no matter what the weather, you know, so it was always like that. And then it was around that sort of 9, 10, 11 year old age that life took a bit of a turn. My mum and dad separated, they got divorced at that point, which then led on to quite a difficult period there. You know, I had to take control at home at such a young age. So mum was going through a very difficult period in her life, and so I found myself having to lie at school and make excuses and sort of look after my sister, and for all intents and purposes I'm certain that my mother went through like a 2-year nervous breakdown. So there was a lot of questions and a lot of things going on, and very quickly had to manipulate situations and take care of things, you know, pay bills, make sure bills were paid, and from mum's money, so I knew where she kept her money, and then run off and pay the shop and the milkman, that kind of thing, you know. So very, very quickly me and my sister established this very close relationship, and then I suppose it was very fortunate, I suppose, really. My stepdad come onto the scene, and life started to change slowly then, and they wanted a fresh start, so we moved home, and we moved to a more difficult area within my hometown. and at this point it was obviously the alpha male in the home, so the fighting would begin, you know, the arguing and all that kind of stuff. We were all growing up, and now we've got this new guy on the scene, and you know how it is. I don't really need to explain that. But with it was this area that we sort of moved to, and this area was not known for its trouble, but it certainly wasn't a weak part of the town. And with it was big groups and people involved in that area there, and it was mainly football. We'd kick around with a ball and whatever, and then slowly as the years ticked over, you know, maybe 12, 13, 14, 15, the petty crime would kick in, you know. You want money, and the area certainly wasn't known for money. It was a typical council estate, and a lot of the families in the same sort of position. And so if you wanted things, you had to sort of go about a different way of getting those things, I suppose. And very quickly the drug scene would start, you know, the recreational drugs, the cannabis and that kind of stuff would be very much on the scene. Friends and what have you would start getting into that kind of thing, and then it was petty crime from local groups, you know, and you get drawn and sucked into it all because it's such large groups and expectation, and you're trying to keep not a reputation, but you're trying to keep in the pecking order as such. So and you tend to find that it was right across the age group, so there was a lot of older lads and lots of younger ones, and they would all get up to their own thing and do what they would do, you know, that kind of stuff. And then it kind of escalates from there, you know. You get involved in maybe shifting some of these drugs, or I don't know, you know, warehouses and that kind of thing, or lorries. You end up getting a lot of gear off the back of lorries and then start selling that and get rid of it. You know, the typical story, gang story as such. And I don't really like calling it the gang or anything like that, because it was normal. It was just a normal way of life, so it was very different. So you'll find why I'm sharing this part of my story is because it's one of the communications I really come into my own element, because I understand the mindset of the youngster that stole the car, or breaking into cars, or these warehouses, or on the drug scene. It's just so free in my mind because it was an everyday occurrence for me. And then I had to move away at maybe 17 or 18. I was involved with a young lady for a number of years actually, and there was a lot of trouble that sort of went around the group at that time, you know. Everyone growing up way too fast and getting involved in drugs, and then different parts of the town were colliding. And lots of fighting and lots of violence was going about, and I had to disappear for a little while just to survive, I suppose, really, because I knew I was going to end up in trouble, and so me and my partner at the time, we moved away, and very slowly that relationship broke down from where we lived, and maybe a couple of years passed there, and I made my way back again, back to my hometown. And very quickly hooked up with the same old people, with the same old problems and the same old way of life, and very quickly you find yourself back in the drug scene and back in the petty crime scene and all that kind of stuff. And it was at that point I met my long-term partner. We got married, we had 3 children, and was together for 15, 16 years, you know. So it was one of those things that started to change, and very, very early on her family were moving away, and so we had to decide, was we going to move together, was she going to move away, but obviously she stayed. And so we were looking into maybe renting a little flat or something nearby. And her family were quite fortunate actually in one area of that, where they had a little bit of land and they had done like a barn conversion, and we had the top flat, and I just recently moved back, and so it was all very quick, you know. It was all very, very quick, and we decided to go out one evening and just gather a few of us together and come back to the new flat, like a little housewarming party. And we were drinking, everyone was drinking, you know. We went out for one or two, and it really was one or two. And then we went back, and we went back because my sister felt very unwell. She said, "Oh, I don't feel well, I don't feel well." And I remember carrying this guilt because I remember saying, "Oh, shut up, you know, just, it'll be alright, you'll be okay, everything will be alright." And so I said to her, "Well, if you're not well, why don't you go and lay down, you know, like, stop whinging about it, just go and lay down." And so she went, "No, yeah, I will go and lay down." So I made sure she was alright there, you know, like, everything alright, your bed's alright, because it was just in a flat and we were just using any spare space to crash for the evening. And you don't really care when you've had a drink, do you? So, and so she got herself comfortable on the floor over at the far end of the flat, and then the party continued, you know, and there was maybe a bottle of JD or a bottle of wine from memory, and the usual, you know, there was cannabis there in the property, and so the party just went on as normal. And then the following morning, it was quite a strange morning because there was like a few of us in this huge bed that I had in this flat, where everyone had just crashed, you know, like just the night got too heavy and everyone was just falling asleep everywhere.
I know gold is not enough.